first I base coat the model in mostly Eshin Grey. This is mostly his cloak, his hat, things like that. It's a large part of the model. So I found that actually painting this model is quite quick because so much of it is just grey. I then painted his staff Mournfang brown. This is pretty straightforward. What I would say is that I was using a wet palette, which really helped my paints kind of have a nice even coat and not be too sticky. So I'd recommend using a wet palette. I then took a little bit of Storm Vermin Grey for the beard, and this was the base coat for the beard. So I wanted something a little lighter for his beard. It's a pretty iconic beard. I wanted it to stick out a little bit, so I'm using Storm Vermin Grey again, nice and thinned, but I think it looks pretty good on the model. I then took a detail brush, I think size 0, and I picked out some of the details in, again, Mournfang brown, I think it's called, if you're using Citadel paints. And I just picked out his straps, his belt, just little details across the miniature that are kind of not exactly part of the cloak. They're kind of holding his cloak on. I would say that it's easy to mess up these parts, not because the details are so small, but sometimes the molds are quite unfinished. I find on the Lord of the Rings models, they're not quite as defined as you might like, so it can be easy to kind of bleed some different colors into different details that aren't supposed to be there. So I'd say just take your time and really try and visualize what's there. I then mixed some Bugman's Glow with Ushabti Bone for his flesh, because I didn't have a flesh shade, but it worked pretty well. And I just picked out the flesh colors on the miniature. There's not an awful lot. There's his face and hands basically, so it's not a tough job. Yeah, he's looking pretty good. So really quick there, I did his sword in Leadbelcher, and that was a base coat. So I then began the process of washing the model. Now I have a gloss shade. I would suggest that you maybe don't use gloss shade. I have Agrax Earth gloss shade. I'd suggest maybe using the non-gloss version, but it's all I had, so I tried it out. It doesn't look too bad. And I washed most of the model in that, along with his beard and just any other details that you can pick out. Now make sure the wash doesn't pool too much on your model. And that was an easy process. I just got my brush, a weathered, beaten brush, put some Stormmoss silver on it, and I dried it up real nice, and then I just kind of took it over the sword, just brushed over the sword slightly until I got the desired effect. Before this shot, I actually went over the model's cloak, so Gandalf's cloak, just a little bit in Storm Vermin Grey, just to give it a kind of layer of a lighter coat. Now the two colors are actually quite similar, so it's not extremely noticeable. So here I had just applied a slightly lighter shade of brown to some of his details to kind of pick them out just ever so slightly and give them a little bit of contrast. And I did the same thing on his staff. And this is my favorite part of painting any model, is just doing a little bit of an overall highlight. And I use a big makeup brush, and I put a very small amount of paint, I think it was Ushabti Bone, again, a very small amount on the model. And made sure it was very dry just to pick out some of the edges of his cloak and things like that. And here I gave him a very simple base, and he looks pretty good, I think, for a second-hand model. So this is the Gandalf the Grey tutorial. If you like the video, please subscribe and leave a comment. Thank you very much.